Sawmill, Western Forest Products. They make wonderful products here that come out of our forests and go into homes and into decking, fencing, paneling, molding, serving domestic and world markets. They are the best of Canada. They bring home the Canadian promise for their workers who get a great paycheck selling wonderful products. But unfortunately, after the lost Liberal decade, that promise is broken. Workers work longer and harder for less. Housing costs have doubled, so our youth can no longer afford a place to live. Liberal taxes punish work, and Liberal inflation has driven 2 million people every month to food banks. This was all before President Trump first threatened his tariffs against Canada. I was glad to learn that the President and Prime Minister spoke today, and like all Canadians, I hope they had a successful talk, and I look forward to hearing about the results that they achieved in that conversation for Canadians. But regardless of what was said, what is now clear is that it was a mistake over the last lost Liberal decade to weaken our economy and become more dependent on the Americans. Liberals blocked pipelines, LNG plants, port expansions, and other major projects because of a radical net zero ideology that has now made us more reliant on the Americans than ever before. We need to break that reliance. We need to put Canada first for a change by axing taxes on our industries to bring home more production, by lowering taxes on workers so they can spend at local small businesses, creating made-in-Canada jobs, by removing Liberal laws, C-69, the No New Pipelines law, by getting rid of the energy cap and the industrial carbon tax to bring production back to this country so that we can stand on our own 2 feet and stand up to the Americans with economic sovereignty. In other words, let's put Canada first. But one of the ways we can do that is also by making our communities safe again. Here in British Columbia, people are more afraid than ever before of crime. As our candidate, Tamara Cronus, will tell you, when she goes door knocking, she meets people who are struggling with fear, who are worried their cars will be stolen, that people addicted to drugs might rob them in order to pay for the addiction. We see addicts on street corners hunched over. We see tent cities that are routinely taken down and then pop up soon afterwards. This is the lost Liberal decade that even in the most beautiful places in the world, like Nanaimo, we have seen this promise broken. Violent crime is up 50%. Human trafficking up 84%. Calls to the National Human Trafficking Hotline up 238% in the last 6 years. The vast majority of victims of human trafficking are women and girls. And even if they escape and bravely report their ordeal, when their perpetrators are arrested, they are promptly released on bail or later on parole. And then they reoffend and do it all over again. Then there's the guns. 85% of guns used in crime come in through our borders mostly from the United States. Only 1% of our shipping containers are inspected. And the Liberals passed C5, getting rid of mandatory jail time for gun criminals. So the offenders who bring in these arms illegally get to serve their sentence in the comfort of their living room. They passed C75, which allows repeat rampant offenders to be released within hours of their latest arrest, meaning that in Vancouver, the same 40 offenders had to be arrested 6,000 times in a single year. Worst of all is the fentanyl. Opioids have killed 50,000 people during the lost Liberal decade of decriminalization and tax-funded supply. Just to put it in perspective, fentanyl is 100 times more powerful than heroin. 40 milligrams of fentanyl can kill 20 people. A mass trafficker of these drugs is a mass murderer. He's like firing a gun into a crowded room. He doesn't know maybe who he's going to hit, but he's definitely killing somebody. 2 criminals were recently caught here in this area, Nanaimo, at a, quote, safe injection site sanctioned by the federal government under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act and often funded with your tax dollars. There, these offenders were caught at the site by officers. They were caught with 245 grams of suspected methamphetamines, 230 grams of suspected cocaine, 45 grams of fentanyl. Another investigation led officers to find 640 grams of meth, 280 grams of cocaine, and 190 of fentanyl. They also seized 3 illegal firearms. Sadly, these stories are now all too common after the Liberals weakened our laws and allowed drugs in our streets. And because Liberals have stacked these laws one on top of the other, the problem compounds. Electing the Carney Liberals will mean 4 more years of the same failed Liberal catch-and-release, soft-on-crime, hug-a-thug policies that got us into this mess. 4 more years of the Liberals, after the lost decade, will mean more crime, more chaos, more death, more destruction. It's no secret that the Liberal drug policy has been a disaster, but they're doubling down. They have the same Liberal ministers, the same Liberal MPs, the same Liberal strategists, and the same Liberal policies of the last decade. In fact, they've gotten even more extreme. Now, the Liberals have brought on Gregor Robertson, the radical former mayor of Vancouver, who's known for running dangerous experiments like drug liberalization and so-called safe supply that flooded the streets. A recent study showed that these policies increased opioid hospitalizations by 58%. And the Vancouver police say that 50% of all the hydromorphone they recover is actually tax-funded drugs distributed by our very own government. It's nice to see the experts, so-called experts, finally acknowledging that they were wrong all along. But that does not mean the Liberals understand that. Gregor Robertson was one of the most radical zealots promoting free drugs in our communities, safe injection sites on every street corner, without consultation and regardless of whether people opposed. The courageous Chinese community in Richmond was forced again and again to stand up against these policies, and now everybody is speaking up. But Mark Carney won't solve the problem that his party caused. He said that fentanyl is not even a crisis in Canada. I don't know what world he lives on. How out of touch do you have to be to dismiss the idea of a fentanyl crisis? Or to bring on Gregor Robertson, the most radical pro-drug politician in Canadian history, as a new candidate and likely new minister in the forthcoming, if, God forbid, the Liberals were ever to be re-elected. The record of death and destruction from Liberal policies is one of the great human tragedies of our times, and my heart goes out to all who need help. But the good news is we can fix what they broke. We need a strong, new Conservative government that will stop the crime and put Canada first for a change. We will do that. We will do it with common sense policies that take the dangerous offenders off the street. 1, we will repeal C5 and end house arrest for the most serious offenders. We will also ensure that we reinstate mandatory prison sentences for serious gun, drug, and human trafficking crimes. We will repeal the Liberal catch-and-release bail law, C-75. And we will also stand up against the Liberal policy of putting serious mass murderers in medium penitentiaries by getting rid of Liberal law C-83. And that's why I am announcing today that that a new Conservative government will put Canadians first for a change, and we will ensure the monsters who kill our people and endanger our communities go to jail for life. A new Conservative government will impose life sentences for the most serious cases of fentanyl distribution, gun smuggling, and human trafficking. First, if a criminal is convicted of 5 or more counts of human trafficking, they will get life sentences. Second, anyone convicted of 5 or more cases of anyone convicted of large-scale trafficking of illegal firearms will get life sentences. And third, anyone caught trafficking or producing more than 40 milligrams of fentanyl will get life sentences. Life sentences will be in place to protect Canadians and to end the chaos in our streets. These policies are necessary, to protect the charter rights of Canadians. We will end automatic bail for anyone charged with human trafficking, and we will strengthen human trafficking laws so that the prosecutors don't have to prove anymore that traffickers used fear and intimidation. Mark my words, if you exploit and terrorize our people, you will go to jail for life and you will never come out alive. If Canadians choose to put Canada first with a common sense conservative government, these monsters will be off our streets. No more revolving door. We will bring home stronger laws and safer streets. And the choice in the coming election on this will be very clear. After the lost Liberal decade of crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder, do Liberals deserve a fourth term, or is it time to put Canada first and to protect our people with a new Conservative government that will put offenders behind bars for good? We will restore the Canadian promise. We will make this a country where hard work pays off by cutting income tax 15%. We will make housing affordable by axing the sales tax on new homes and stimulating municipal governments to speed up permits and free up land so you can afford a place to live. We'll bring home our resource production by repealing anti-development laws and cutting taxes on investment so that we have strength to stand on our own 2 feet and stand up to the Americans. We'll bring home the promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, where hard work gets you a great life on a safe street, in a beautiful house, protected by brave soldiers under our proud flag here in Canada. Canada first. Let's bring it home. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now take questions from the floor.
Richard Zussman, Global News.
Yes.
I know you mentioned the meeting that took place today between Mark Carney and the President. Excuse me. If you are the Prime Minister at the end of all of this, would you have any preconditions on a meeting with the President? And I know you haven't seen it yet because it just happened. The President's in the Oval Office, and he just said, we have Liberation Day on April 2nd, and I'm not talking about Canada, but many, many countries have taken advantage of us. Any thoughts on potentially a changing tone out of the White House?
Well, let's hope that there is a change in tone. We want to put an end to this crazy tariff chaos. We have the best trading relationship in the history of the world. Why not continue and grow that trading relationship as two separate sovereign nations? My message to President Trump is that true free trade without tariffs will allow both of our economies to separately grow stronger so that we can fund stronger militaries and more secure borders and make our continent safe against the real risks from overseas. That's the goal that we should all be working towards. And my goal will be to make Canada, regardless of what the Americans do, this has all been a wake-up call for us. By blocking pipelines and LNG plants and slow-rolling resource projects, capping our oil and gas sector, the Liberals have made us too reliant on the Americans. That will end. My government will repeal the entire carbon tax, the energy cap, the anti-pipeline law, C-69. We will bring the hundreds of billions of dollars back to our economy, and we will start selling between Canadians and overseas so that we are stronger, self-reliant, sovereign, to stand on our own 2 feet and stand up to the Americans. In other words, let's bring home the country that we knew and the country that we still love. Thank you very much.
En français.
Thank you, sir. Merci beaucoup. On espère que c'est un changement de ton. On a besoin d'un changement de ton. Il faut mettre fin au chaos dans nos commerces avec les Américains qui interrompent et qui causent des énormes graves conséquences pour les travailleurs des deux côtés de la frontière. Nous voulons faire commerce avec nos voisins américains sans tarifs. Et mon message pour le président Trump, c'est si vous arrêtez les tarifs, les deux économies vont être plus fortes. On va pouvoir échanger davantage. Nos travailleurs vont gagner plus. Et nos consommateurs vont payer moins. Ça nous permettrait d'avoir des militaires plus forts pour protéger notre continent partagé, en même temps que la souveraineté du Canada est respectée. C'est ça mon message pour M. Trump. En même temps, il faut que nous soyons plus souverains. Après les décennies perdues des libéraux, on est plus dépendant des Américains que jamais. Ils ont bloqué les ressources naturelles, taxé nos industries et expulsé 500 milliards de dollars d'investissement à l'étranger. Il faut la ramener ici. On va abroger les lois anti-ressources. On va donner l'approbation rapide à GNL Québec, aux pipelines, aux expansions portuaires, pour pouvoir devenir plus indépendants économiquement et pour pouvoir faire face aux Américains avec la force. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Next question.
Good morning, Dean Stoltz, Czech TV in Victoria. We are at a sawmill here in Nanaimo, and mills like this are becoming increasingly rare on the island and in BC. People at these places are worried about their jobs. Now they're faced with tariffs from Donald Trump. What is your plan to protect the industry in BC and across Canada, for that matter, in the face of these tariffs?
Very good question. I've been traveling to sawmills across the interior of British Columbia and, of course, the island for about 2 years now. And it's been a devastating period of sawmill closures. And let's be honest about what's causing it. First of all, we've had a lost Liberal decade. Justin Trudeau allowed the Americans to reinstate tariffs on our lumber. Now, let's be clear. Those were not Trump's tariffs. They were Biden's tariffs. Biden then doubled the tariffs, and now President Trump wants to raise them again. Now, it's very easy to make excuses for the Liberals, saying they have no control over this, but history doesn't bear that out. Stephen Harper got a softwood lumber deal within 80 days of becoming Prime Minister that saw the Americans end the tariffs and reimburse the ones they had already collected. So the Liberals have not made protection of our softwood lumber a priority. They have failed over a decade, and our workers are paying the price. I will negotiate to end the softwood lumber tariffs so that we can get our lumber to the American market. I will also massively stimulate home building. So this lumber can go into building new homes by taking the GST off new homes, incentivizing municipalities to free up permits, speed up approvals, cut development charges, and open up land to construction. By selling off 6,000 federal buildings and thousands of acres of federal land, we can build millions of new homes with Canadian lumber. That'll mean the workers at this mill and in the forests of Canada can make bigger paychecks, which they can bring to houses that they can afford to buy. In other words, we need to bring home the Canadian promise. And the choice in the next election is after the lost Liberal decade of losing jobs and wealth to the South, of higher taxes and crime. Do they deserve a fourth term, or is it time to put Canada first with a new Conservative government that will bring our jobs home to Canadians?
En français.
Merci beaucoup. Après la décennie libérale, le secteur forestier est en peine à travers le Canada. Des politiques environnementales radicales ont tué des emplois. Le décret radical de Stephen Guilbeault menacé sur les travailleurs au Québec font mal. Et les tarifs américains imposés par le président Biden fait aussi mal. Quand M. Harper était au pouvoir, il a réussi à obtenir une entente avec les Américains pour mettre fin aux tarifs dans 80 jours. Et tous les tarifs déjà récoltés étaient remboursés. Mais après 10 ans des libéraux, les tarifs sont non pas seulement en place, ils sont doublés. Moi, je vais me battre pour les travailleurs dans le secteur forestier. On va renverser le décret forestier. On va enlever les taxes sur l'industrie. Et on va inciter un boom dans la construction de logements en enlevant le TPS sur les nouvelles maisons et incitant les municipalités de donner le feu vert au développement. C'est comme ça qu'on va alimenter la demande pour nos bois et bâtir des logements pour que nos travailleurs aient un chèque de paie et une maison en plus. C'est ça la promesse du Canada.
Thank you. Next question.
Good morning. Alex Ronsley from Nanaimo News Now, Patterson Media. This is a riding that the Conservatives lost by less than 2 points back in 2021. It's a region that went, a little surprisingly, all NDP provincially last fall. And it's your fifth visit to the area since 2022. Can you just speak specifically to where you believe you can make inroads on Vancouver Island, Central Island, Nanaimo Ladysmith, and by extension, Courtenay Alberni as well?
Yes, well, look, I think the NDP has failed these communities. They sold out the residents and signed on to a coalition, a costly coalition with the NDP, with the Liberals. They voted for carbon taxes, soft on crime, releasing criminals into the streets, and easy drug policies that are killing people on the streets of Nanaimo. But the good news is that British Columbia can choose another way. We've got a great candidate in Tamara Cronus. We're going to, she's going to be a great member of Parliament, and she is going to join with me to bring home the promise of Canada. We will put Canada first for a change by axing taxes, locking up criminals, banning drugs, bringing home our paychecks and production with resource projects. That's how we're going to win the confidence of the great hardworking people of Vancouver Island and all of Canada.
Thank you. Next question. Prochaine question.
Bonjour, Monsieur Poilièvre.
Bonjour. Ça va bien?
Ça va bien, vous?
Très bien.
Excellent. Il fait froid le long de l'eau, mais j'espère
Pas
que
grave, c'est pas
on va pas
grave.
vous garder trop longtemps.
C'est pas grave. On va survivre.
Quand Justin Trudeau était premier ministre du Canada, M.
Oui.
Trump l'appelait le gouverneur du 51e État. Aujourd'hui, M. Trump a parlé à Mark Carney et il l'a appelé le premier ministre du Canada. Le ton semble changer. Et il a dit aussi, j'espère vous rencontrer après la prochaine élection, M. Carney. Sous-entendu, une victoire libérale. Est-ce que M. Trump est en train de s'ingérer dans l'élection alors qu'il reste encore une trentaine de jours?
Évidemment, M. Trump veut que les libéraux gagnent. Il veut un gouvernement faible au Canada. La décennie perdue des libéraux a permis des Américains de nous enlever 500 milliards de dollars d'investissement. Des politiques libérales expulsent nos emplois en ressources naturelles vers les États-Unis et nous rendent plus dépendants sur les Américains. Donc, ça ne m'étonne pas que M. Trump veut garder des libéraux au pouvoir, mais les Canadiens peuvent choisir quelqu'un qui va mettre le Canada d'abord. Oui, en coupant les taxes et les impôts pour nos entreprises et ramener les investissements ici au Canada, en enlevant les lois anti-développement, en approuvant des pipelines, des usines de GNL, des expansions portuaires, et j'en passe, afin de renforcer notre forteresse économique. C'est comme ça qu'on va pouvoir non seulement faire des ententes avec les Américains et les autres pays, mais aussi être vraiment souverain économiquement et énergétiquement. Les Canadiens, et non pas le président des États-Unis, vont décider qui sera leur gouvernement. C'est ça la démocratie. Et le choix pour les Canadiens, après la décennie perdue des libéraux, où les coûts augmentent et l'économie est en baisse, est-ce que les libéraux méritent un quatrième mandat ou bien est-ce qu'il nous faut mettre le Canada d'abord avec un nouveau gouvernement conservateur qui va ramener la force à notre économie?
In English.
Well, it's clear that the president would like to keep the Liberals in power. They've been very good for his agenda. He wants to take our money and our jobs, and Liberals have helped him do it. They've blocked pipelines, LNG plants, they've raised taxes. Mr. Carney wants a massive tax on our Canadian industry that will drive jobs south of the border. Mark Carney and Donald Trump have one thing in common. They both favor taxing Canadian industry. Trump with tariffs and Carney with carbon taxes. And obviously that will send hundreds of thousands more jobs south of the border into the arms of the Americans. By contrast, though, Canadians will have to decide. After the lost Liberal decade, do you want to give the Liberals a fourth term of driving up costs and crime, and driving our economy down under the American thumb? Or is it time to put Canada first for a change? with a new conservative government that will axe taxes, green light our resources, bring home our jobs so that we can stand up to the Americans from a position of strength.
Thank you. We will now take a call-in question from the phone line, and this
All
will
right.
be the final
Thank you.
question.
We have a question from Tom Fletcher from Western Standard. Your line is open.
Thank you. On drug policy, we've seen research confirming what most people know, that BC's safe supply and decriminalization experiment leads to increased opioid in overdoses, hospitalizations. Now BC is starting to move towards drug treatment, similar to Alberta, and what they're calling involuntary care in a prison or a health facility. What more needs to be done on the treatment side in BC, and what is the appropriate role for the federal government in drug treatment?
Thank you very much. Very good question. About 2 years ago, I made a video near one of the tent encampments in Vancouver where I said that this policy of decriminalizing and handing out drugs on our streets was a disaster, and the Liberals attacked me mercilessly for it, saying that it was cold-hearted and mean. Well, what was cold-hearted and mean was leaving those people in tent cities dying of drug overdoses. We now know that the radical drug policies of the Liberals have been a deadly disaster. BC is perhaps the worst place on earth for drug overdoses as a result of these very radical experiments. Liberals now have the same MPs, the same ministers, and even some of the more radical people like Gregor Robertson, who are on their team that will continue the chaos. Canadians will have to decide. After a lost Liberal decade of drug overdoses, death, and chaos in our streets, is it time to re-elect them a fourth time in power, or do we need to put Canada and Canadian safety first with a new Conservative government that will ban the drugs, stop giving out tax-funded opioids, shut down the drug consumption sites, and put the resources into treatment and recovery to bring our loved ones home drug-free? Detox, counseling, group therapy, physical exercise, yoga, sweat lodges for First Nations, job placement and housing to get people off the street, out of the tents, into homes. And my message to anyone out there who's struggling with addiction: hang on, have hope. Help is on the way.
En français.
Merci beaucoup de la question. La politique de libéralisation et de subventionner les drogues a été une catastrophe en Colombie-Britannique. On a perdu 50 000 personnes à travers le Canada pendant la décennie perdue des libéraux. Maintenant, les mêmes ministres libéraux, les mêmes députés libéraux, les mêmes politiques libérales seront en place s'ils sont élus pour une quatrième fois. C'est pour ça qu'il faut rejeter un quatrième mandat des libéraux et les remplacer avec un nouveau gouvernement conservateur qui va mettre la sécurité canadienne d'abord pour faire changement. Moi, je supporte, premièrement, il faut mettre les trafiquants de fentanyl en prison à vie. Deuxièmement, il faut éliminer toutes les subventions pour les opioïdes. Troisièmement, il faut bannir et mettre en œuvre, exécuter les lois en concernant l'interdiction de drogue. Et finalement, il faut investir dans le traitement et la réhabilitation pour permettre nos citoyens de briser la dépendance sur la drogue avec un traitement professionnel qui leur permettra de rétablir leur vie, d'avoir un emploi, une maison et de contribuer. Donc, mon message pour ceux et celles qui ont une dépendance de drogue: gardez vos espoirs. Un meilleur avenir s'en vient. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. That concludes today's press conference.
Merci. Thank you.